Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving right into one of the darkest, most devastating chapters in human history, the rise and fall of Adolf Hitler. Our goal here? To unpack exactly how these terrifying events actually unfolded.
It really all comes down to this one massive question. How exactly did a failed artist manipulate a fragile democracy and ultimately plunge the entire world into its deadliest conflict? It's a terrifying historical reality to grapple with. But to truly grasp the sheer scale of this tragedy, we've got to look closely at the actual mechanics of his rise to power.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be walking through 6 key phases: the seeds of radicalization, a fragile republic falls, the path to dictatorship, ideology and the Holocaust, the world at war, and finally, downfall and enduring legacy. Let's jump right into Section 1, the seeds of radicalization.
To understand the dictator, we absolutely have to look at his origins. Born in 1889, Hitler actually dreamed of being a painter. But he was rejected not once, but twice from the Vienna Art Academy. This massive personal devastation led him to a really marginal life. He spent time in homeless shelters, and during this period he absorbed some deeply virulent anti-Semitism and extreme nationalism. Fast forward a bit, he voluntarily enlists in World War I. When Germany was eventually defeated in 1918, it hit him hard. It became this profound, radicalizing personal crisis for him.
So the crucial point for us to understand here is how he processed that defeat. Like a lot of extreme nationalists at the time, Hitler completely refused to believe that Germany lost the war on the actual battlefield. Instead, he bought into the Dolchstoß Legende. That's the stab-in-the-back myth. It was this incredibly dangerous conspiracy theory, claiming the military was betrayed from within by politicians, communists, and Jewish people. He basically weaponized this toxic rhetoric to channel all that post-war anger into violent nationalism.
Moving on to Section 2, a fragile republic falls.
Now we have to look at the systemic failures of the newly established Weimar Republic, because they created perfectly fertile ground for extremism. After World War I, Germany was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, and it was deeply humiliating. It forced Germany to accept full responsibility for the war, demanded massive financial reparations, stripped away their territory, and completely gutted their military forces. As you can imagine, the German public felt utterly betrayed.
And the immediate economic fallout? Just catastrophic. By 1923, the financial strain triggered hyperinflation that was so extreme, money became practically worthless. To put this into perspective, the price of a single loaf of bread skyrocketed to billions of marks. People were literally bringing wheelbarrows full of cash to the bakery just to buy the basics. With life savings wiped out overnight, you had a desperate public longing for absolutely anyone who promised to bring back some stability.
Which brings us to Section 3, the path to dictatorship. That deep desperation paved the way for absolute power. And what's truly terrifying here is the sheer speed at which democracy was dismantled. In January 1933, conservative elites appointed Hitler as chancellor. They actually thought they could control him. While a month later, the Reichstag building was set on fire. Hitler immediately exploited this, blamed communists, and suspended civil liberties. By March, the Enabling Act was passed, which allowed him to bypass parliament entirely. Think about that. In just 3 short months, the Weimar Republic was dead. Using the legal loopholes built into that Enabling Act, Hitler aggressively consolidated his power. It was methodical. Step 1, outlaw all rival political parties. Step 2, dissolve the trade unions. Step 3, throw political enemies, especially communists and socialists, straight into prisons and the earliest concentration camps. He successfully established a totalitarian, one-party state, taking total command over the government, the military, and the media. Section 4, Ideology and the Holocaust. Once total control was secured, the regime began the horrifying implementation of Nazi racial ideology. This wasn't an overnight thing. It was a deliberate, step-by-step escalation into unimaginable violence. In 1933, it started with boycotts and civil service bans. Then, by 1935, the Nuremberg laws legally stripped Jewish people of their German citizenship. In 1938, we saw Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, which marked a terrifying shift into violent, state-sponsored terror. And this insidious, escalating path led directly to 1941. It culminated in what the Nazis grimly called the final solution. This was an industrialized, state-sponsored genocide. It was carried out through this massive, horrific network of ghettos, mass shootings, and extermination camps, places like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor.
Families were systematically torn apart, subjected to forced labor, starvation, and murdered in gas chambers. And the regime didn't stop there. They also targeted the Roma, people with disabilities, political dissidents, and anyone else they deemed undesirable.
The sheer scale of this atrocity is honestly almost unfathomable. The source material estimates that 6 million Jewish people were murdered by the end of the war. Let that sink in for a moment. That represented a staggering 67%, literally 2/3 of Europe's entire Jewish population, completely wiped out by unchecked hatred and totalitarianism.
Section 5. The World at War.
While these domestic horrors were unfolding, Hitler's aggressive foreign policy was busy shattering Europe's fragile appeasement. Seeking what he called Lebensraum, or living space, Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, using rapid blitzkrieg tactics, and that sparked World War II. The timeline from there is breathtakingly fast. By June 1940, France falls in just 6 weeks. A year later, Hitler launches Operation Barbarossa and invades the Soviet Union. And by December 1941, following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, the US is pulled right in. Suddenly, this conflict has engulfed multiple continents.
The human cost of all this was entirely unprecedented, 70 to 85 million. The source material identifies this staggering number as the estimated global casualties of World War II, which includes millions and millions of civilians. It still stands today as the deadliest conflict in human history, directly triggered by the aggressive expansionism of Nazi Germany. And finally, Section 6, Downfall and Enduring Legacy.
Eventually, the tide did turn. By 1943, following crushing defeats at Stalingrad and later the massive Allied D-Day invasion, Hitler's forces were being pushed back on all fronts. Refusing to surrender, Hitler committed suicide in his bunker in April 1945. Germany was left in absolute physical ruins. The nation was immediately carved up into occupation zones, which quickly hardened into 2 completely separate states, a democratic and capitalist West Germany and a communist East Germany. The Cold War had officially begun.
But the world also had to deeply reckon with the atrocities that were uncovered. From 1945 to 1946, the Nuremberg trials were held. This was huge, prosecuting leading Nazi officials and establishing unprecedented international legal accountability for war crimes and genocide. Around the exact same time, the United Nations was founded with the explicit goal of promoting peace and preventing future conflicts. And even today, through museums, memorials, and education, the world continues the ongoing, vital work of combating racism and intolerance.
Which leaves us with this final, profound thought to consider. The source material makes it abundantly clear that remembering this history isn't just about knowing facts, it's a solemn duty. So I want to leave you with this. How will remembering these catastrophic events guard our modern world against the dangers of unchecked power and hatred? It's a critical question we must continue to ask ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.